Welcome to our second episode of Sobremesa Chats for the month of April. And today we're going to be talking about self-care. We kicked off the month talking about high ambition, and so today we're going to do a follow-up about self-care. My name is Hilda McClure. I'm the CEO of Connecta Center.
I'm Elizabeth Palafox, the lead clinician here in San Antonio for Connecta Center.
I'm always excited about what we're talking about, but today I'm really excited because I love talking about self-care. It's like one of my favorite things to present on. And I'm pulling it out right now. Our team, I don't think you can see that. Let me take my little blur off. Um, I don't know what's happening here,
Let me see it.
but
I think I have it as well. Yeah.
exactly what's happening. I don't know why yeah, there we go. It's like mine is like automatically blurring, which I don't
I
understand.
maybe
Yeah.
it's shy, but yeah, English, Spanish.
There you go. So we have a book called Self-Care for Chingonas, and our team wrote about self-care and the different ways we can be practicing it, tied to our cultural practices. And there's just like, I love this book, outside of what we hope to offer it for the community, but just like listening to like the stories. Like I love your chapter, listen, talking about your mom and her self-care practices. So yeah, so you can pick this up on our website, connectedfoundation.org. We obviously deeply care about self-care, and so hence why we wrote a book about it. So tell me, Elizabeth, how where did you learn self-care? I mean, I know I've read your chapter in the book, but if people haven't read their chapter, where did you learn about self-care and kind of how did you start practicing it? Tell us all the things.
Yeah. So, I wouldn't say it was anything that was outright, spoken about, this is how you're supposed to take care of yourself if you're feeling tired or anything like that. It was all through, I would say like most of us, right? Maybe through example. So, in the book, I, in the book specifically, I talk about a couple of things. For example, my mom, um, and then for context, she had me really young. She had me when she was 17. Um, and so I got to kind of see her, grow up, become a young adult, an adult, and all of the things. But what I always admired about her is she just loves like embracing um her femininity and her beauty, and that was like a way for her to practice self-care in the midst of being a single parent, in the midst of work and just so many obligations, that was something that she never neglected, never ever, even till today. And it truly was less about like vanity and more about, and I use the word ritual, like it's almost this ritual of this may be the only thing I can control today. And so I'm gonna do it, right? I'm gonna do this thing that helps me feel good as I move throughout the day. Um, and I just feel like that gave me a lot of insight into what can help someone feel like they can take on a chaotic day. So I just picked up on that from her, from some of the other women in my family, of course, Um, I don't mention her in the book, but I have my Aunt Chelly, and she as well, maintaining her home and making time for prayer and gardening. And I think also even like self-care may look like making sure you're eating your caldo de pollo when you're sick, that you're putting on Vaporu, that you're sleeping, that there was opportunities even in those moments to make sure you're caring for yourself, even if others are caring for you. So um those are kind of my early examples of self-care and practice. And then as an actual concept and framework, I think that wasn't until oof, until maybe grad school, I want to say, where we talked about through the lens of like a future clinician or practitioner, you know, you will need to make sure you're well, kind of like with yourself in order to do a lot of the work that the job demands. And so they talked about movement, like physical health, rest, community. So that's kind of the more practical side of things and how I learned it and the importance of it. hmm Yeah. What about you? Tell the people how
Tell
you
the people.
okay.
I think I ended up learning it in grad school as a formal concept, and I don't remember it ever being talked about growing up. But I do remember having like the women in my family just having like they just loved like having their hair done and getting their nails done and not in a vain way, but just as just like it was just part of their routine, like you said, like their rituals.
Mhm.
Just like or like always like my Dia used to make her own clothes. She wanted it to look a certain
Ooh.
kind of way, and so she would just like make it. And
Mm.
so just like all the women in my family on both sides, my mom and my dad really having just like they knew what they liked and they practiced it, you know? And I don't
Mhm.
think very similar
Mhm.
to you, I don't think I recognize that as self-care. Um, but they're out there doing those things, you know?
Mhm.
And then yeah,
Mhm.
like you said, in grad school, kind of get learning the formal terms around it, and therapist burnout, and even teaching burnout in my
Mhm.
undergrad in education. So we talked about that too. Um, the education field, especially if you want to be what sometimes is referred to as a Pinterest teacher, that requires a lot of
Mm.
extra time outside of the classroom.
Mm.
Um, actually, there's a lot of commonalities in terms of like the work for therapists and teachers. For example, when you have kids in your classroom, you're teaching, right? Like that is the work. And so this
Yeah.
other stuff
Yeah.
that requires to get ready for the teaching has to happen outside of those hours, kind of like counseling, right? Like once you are with a client, you're with a client, and anything like administrative has to happen after those hours. So it can be, I think, sometimes it can feel hard to build self care into some of that or just create like
Mhm.
balance
Mhm.
in that.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
then like tying it to our first episode, right? Talking about high ambition or really driven women, right? We're not really, that is like frowned upon, I think, a lot of times, self-care, because it really is about going how as far, as hard as possible.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. So, we can kind of get into the one thing that when I've done outreach events talking about the book or self-care loteria and just like when this kind of gets talked about, one of the things I hear is I don't have time, or that's a luxury. Um, I don't even know what that would look like, right? From people living life and people having to juggle a lot of demands. Time is so limited, right? So uh, again, valid questions, but like anything, reframing it and building it into your life versus like completely transforming like everything about your life is just kind of building it into it. How do we make it more sustainable? And so I had an assessment that I've used sometimes in my sessions to kind of get this conversation going because um I think for people, again, the reason words like luxury or don't have time get used is because self-care is associated more kind of like with almost like trendy, right? Like trends,
Mm-hmm.
like um, yoga class or spas or brunch with the gals. Like it's almost like um only it can only be one way. And
Yeah.
so I like this assessment because it talks about how self-care goes beyond that. Um, and so I can share my screen
Yeah.
and we can kind of look at the different categories of self-care and how we can build that into our lives.
I love that. And
Mhm.
while you do that, right, like self-care is just not one thing, right? It's several different things. Um, and so it can vary. There's a lot of different things you can be doing.
Okay, hold it. Confirm with me you see the self-care assessment
I
screen. Yes.
can.
Okay.
I can.
Okay, so quick overview. We go through these different categories and I'll usually have people rank from 1 to 3 stars, how satisfied are they in that area or like how well have they been able to kind of keep up with some of these things. And so as for viewers, you kind of going along ranking it yourself and knowing these aren't things that you're expected to do. Like, I think there's at least 50 things on here, right? That's not realistic. It's not for me and not for the average person. So it's
Mm-hmm.
not about getting threes for every item, but just kind of starting that reflection for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So around areas of physical self-care, um, like I mentioned at the top, resting when you're sick, um, being able to kind of just do preventative stuff. And I also want to, as a social worker, right, I also want to consider at it from that lens of self-care topics at times can be even triggering, right? Because then it brings up conversations around access or around resources. And I do think that is something more systemic, that we can kind of continue advocating for, but also that's where a community can step in. We can, I know like here in San Antonio, there's a lot of mobile clinics that offer free to low cost services, like free mammograms or free dental care. Um, and so that's just kind of an aside, right? There are challenges, there are real challenges, and also we're working on filling those gaps.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but again, self-care can also look like, can I take care of my personal hygiene? Am I participating in fun movement activities, walking, swimming? Um, what's like a fun one I heard recently for physical? Oh, somebody mentioned to me, and I didn't look it up further, but Gaelic football? Have you ever heard of this?
No.
Okay. I I heard about it in a training, and let me actually like bring because I take it like to be like rugby and soccer combined, something like
Okay.
super high energy. But yeah, like doing things that are fun,
Yeah.
but get you
Pickle.
moving.
Yeah, pickleball is having a moment.
Pickleball, yes, yes. I
Mhm.
remember going to Zumba with my mom when I was like in middle school, and I had the
Yes.
best time, and that like actually got me sweating, believe it or not.
Yeah, yeah. My husband and I love going to silent discos. We went last week
Oh, I love that.
to go dancing. Mhm.
So many fun things
So many
physically.
fun things. Yeah.
So yeah,
Okay,
so
and
just kind of like looking over this and thinking to yourself, again, not everything has to change, but
mhm,
maybe one thing, what can I begin incorporating that can help me maybe go from 1 star to 2 stars in the
yeah,
coming week?
love that. Also, I do want to highlight that eating regularly.
Mm-hmm.
Like some of us need to be eating regularly,
Mm-hmm.
meaning that
Mm-hmm.
I'm consciously intentionally eating more
Yeah.
than one time a day.
Yes, 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 yes. Okay. Then we have um psychological emotional self-care. So this is very, very varied. We have talked about taking time off. And again, that can be a privilege to be able to take time off. So just kind of naming that of maybe I can't take time off of work. Um, and also, let's say on the weekends, you're used to like maybe there's always a family gathering or there's always like, I'm gonna go do this on the weekend, but could you maybe schedule, today I'm gonna go like sit by the lake, or today I'm gonna sleep in, on the weekend. I'm gonna give myself opportunities to get rest when I can. Um, Hobbies are such a good form of emotional self-care when we connect with play, when we connect with creativity. You mentioned I think you said one of your aunts like made her own clothes, and how sewing and design and all of that is such a good way to stimulate, your your mental health. Um, I'll jump down here a little bit to even like recognizing or doing inventory of your strengths. Um, we move through with a week. It's easy to kind of move through the week and just kind of say, yep, like check, I did everything I was supposed to do. But can you take the time and really give yourself that good job? You really showed up on that day that was hard, or you set that boundary, or you talked nicely to yourself today, right? What are some strengths that you can highlight? Laughter, or comfort watches, are also a great self-soothing technique. Hilda, have you heard of risoterapia?
I vaguely have heard that.
Yes. So risoterapia or laugh therapy. Um, It is, from my understanding, it is this practice where I've seen it more so done in like group settings where there is a facilitator who basically leads the group in laughter. So they'll start just like cackling, like laughing, full belly laugh. Even if nothing funny has happened, it's just kind of initiating the laugh until it becomes contagious and infectious for the whole group. And it's just laughing and laughing, and laughter and crying have very similar, like, you know, physiological sort of functions. Um, and oftentimes, in those group settings, they laugh to the point of crying, right? Like it's this release of everything that's been held in. So laugh
I
it
love
out.
that. I love that. I love that. I do have a client who intentionally makes everything funny to help her cope.
Yes,
Hmm.
yes.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. Um, any other things on here that are not on here, Hilda, that you would add to psychological self-care?
Um, Being in relationship. I don't know if that's on there.
Mm-hmm.
Being in relationship, allowing, like, letting yourself co-regulate with someone else, and it doesn't always have to be a conversation around feelings. I think that can be helpful, but even
Mm-hmm.
just you're watching TikToks together and laughing at the
Yeah.
TikToks, or watching a movie together,
Mm-hmm.
and making it really special, in
Mm-hmm.
terms of, like, you get popcorn and your favorite
Yeah.
food, and
Mm-hmm.
so I would add, I'm sure there's also a social self-care, but I think that also there's like overlap with the psychological for
Yeah.
sure.
Yes. If I were to put this on a Venn diagram, it's probably like a little flower. Everything goes into one another.
Yeah.
I would add maybe something like sensory here as
Mm,
well. Like, if you're really nervous about an upcoming, appointment, meeting, whatever, carrying like a calming spray or like lotion that you can put on yourself before. For me, I love putting on sunscreen. Like just if I'm having a stressful day and like smelling sunscreen reminds me of being at the beach or of summertime. So something that's kind of sensory and helps ground you. I would add that in there.
Yeah, yeah, I love that.
You said social.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You called it. Um,
Called it.
social self-care is or in other words, co-regulation. So how are we able to connect with other people, sync up our nervous
Mm-hmm,
systems for a good cause? And so that can look like a phone call, FaceTime. My best friend, when we're able to have like longer FaceTimes, it's it's kind of like comforting to even just watch her make coffee or like as we're talking or seeing her do things and feeling like I'm there and present with her.
mm-hmm.
Um, I want to like asking for help when you need it. Can
That's a
also
good
be
one.
social self-care because we echoing, right? Past conversations, we don't need to, we don't have to do it all on our own. And you said something a few sessions back of like teaching people how to love us better, by some
Mm-hmm,
of the I think you said like some of the things we set as limits or some of the things we request, those are ways to invite people to love us better. And so, that can fall with that. Asking for help or letting people help you is
mm-hmm.
a way they can love you better, or you can let yourself be loved
Mm, yeah,
fully.
for sure.
Um, if you do have a romantic partner or partners, spending time in have going on a fun date.
Mm.
Um, I know you do like Gottman work, right? Couples
Um,
or
I
have
don't
some
do.
familiarity with it.
Yeah, I have familiarity with it. I do use it. I don't see couples, but I do use it for my individuals because I think there's like
Yeah.
um they have a lot of good stuff.
Yes. So I was gonna say with that, they because couples can come in during like heavier periods of time in their marriage or after many years. And I know that that framework, Gottman, they invite like quality time together, right? Like
Yeah.
doing something together,
Mm-hmm.
laughing together,
Mm-hmm.
asking each other like 20 questions,
Yeah.
being able
Yeah.
to build in the fun part of being in relationship.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's they your love maps is what they call it.
Okay,
And so
yeah.
basically you know each other. And so that those love maps have to be updated regularly. So you always have to be asking questions. Their best friend when they were 16 is not their best friend when they're 32. Well,
Mm.
maybe some folks are, right?
Mhm.
Mine is not necessarily the truth, right? Um, so you do that, you build meaning and create new experiences. So you try new things together, helps release the hormone like cocktail to help create bonding. And one of my favorite things about that I use probably talk about the most in session are bids for connection.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's a 7-to-1 ratio that you need to
Mhm.
have seven positive bids for
Mhm.
connection. There's other terminology, I just can't think of it, versus the one turning away.
Mhm.
So the way I kind of frame it is that for example, when I'm in session, I cannot answer my phone when my
Mhm.
husband calls me. He knows I'm in session, and we have a system that we have worked out that if it's an emergency, there's like a certain things they do to
Mhm.
catch my attention.
Mhm.
Um, but if he calls or whatever, I can't answer. And so if we're making enough bids for connection, it's not a big deal, right? Because it's like, okay, I'll just talk to him later. If I'm not
Right.
turning towards him at all, when I also don't pick up, it doesn't matter that I'm in session. It's going to be very upsetting because there's not enough
Hmm.
bang for, like, there's not enough
Right.
money in the bank, right,
Hmm.
to offset the turning away.
Hmm.
Um,
So
so
it's
that's
like
seven to one.
overdraft or something.
Yeah, it's overdraft.
Yeah.
And so, you turn away twice, that's 14 positive bids, right? To overturn that. And if you're overdrafted, that just puts you at neutral. It doesn't even like
Hmm.
give you space for another turning away.
Yep.
So anyway, I love that because of that.
Hmm.
Spending
Hmm.
time with our partners, and this applies to friends too, right? That
Yes.
we need to be when they send you a TikTok or whatever, that's a bid for connection, right? They're
Hmm.
asking to connect with you.
Hmm. Hmm.
Also on social self-care, I read this really good blog post or Substack post a couple of weeks ago. And, as therapists, we talk so much about making community, building community, being a part of community. And what the research says is that you need 200 hours of quality time with folks in order to move people from acquaintances to friends slash close
Hmm.
friends.
Hmm.
And so in this blog post, she's a therapist. She writes about she's trying to build community. And so she went to book club. She found a book club in her community and she went to book club and she overthought the whole thing. So she's like there, she like cracked a joke and said a bad word and laughed. And so she leaves and she's like, wow, that really sucked. And so her reframe was, well, in order for us to make friends, that doesn't happen automatically. I have to put in 200 hours of work, right? And it was
Yeah.
such, and so she's like, okay, 4 hours down. Next week it'll be 8 hours. She was like, well, and if that's the case, then maybe I need to be intentional about spending some quality time with them outside of book club. Because 4 hours a week, it's going to take me 20 weeks.
Right.
No, more than that. But it's going to take a long time to, I think it's 50 weeks, something like that. Yeah, 50 weeks to do that, a year to do that.
Hmm.
If I'm
Hmm.
only putting 4 hours. But I think it can be a helpful reframe, especially if it feels really difficult to make friends. I want to honor that it is. And also, right, when I can think about it, I have to put in 200 hours of quality time. It makes sense why we wouldn't be besties
Yeah.
after one meeting.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Adjusting expectations, but also like I remember when my fiance and I first started dating, for whatever reason, our first dates were there was always some type of hijinks going on. Like, for example, we'd find something online that looked like really like they marketed it to be like a certain way, and then we'd get there and it was like two booths or something. Um, or just kind of like all kinds of like things that would go wrong. But also how much that teaches you about or gives you opportunity to even like connect through that or learn about yourselves through that. And so even in early stages of friendships or relationships, it doesn't have to be like perfect or go a certain way. There's still so much richness in those interactions and experiences. Okay. The next one is spiritual. And again, spiritual doesn't always mean like religious or it doesn't have to look a certain way. Spirituality it's just sort of connecting you to something bigger than yourself. And so nature can be that, music can be that, food, literature. There's so much that can just connect you to something and help you find meaning in the things that you're doing or that are happening. Um, and so just nourishing that side can be energizing in a way that again you're not always like maybe making time for, but it's infused in the things that you're doing. But if you do have that time, are you able to meditate or pray? Doing again an inventory of, am I doing things aligned with my personal values? Um, am I giving, is it allowing me to give back? Can I give back? Participating or volunteering in a cause? Um, yeah, just kind of connecting with something bigger than yourself.
For sure. Sure. I love that. Mm.
And then I think this is, yeah, the last one is professional self-care, which if you all listened to the last episode, we talked about like academics and career, and some of these expectations. And so this is another great way of doing a temperature check for yourself when it comes to, am I overdoing it? And so, or underdoing it, right? So am I still excited about improving or learning something? My skill set. Um, how often or how well am I setting boundaries or saying no? Um, Making time to build connections with team members or in the community networking. Um, Keeping a comfortable workspace, I think, is under
Underappreciated for sure.
underappreciated. I remember when I moved into this, or like we moved into this office, just compared to some of our first offices, like the light coming in and the soft lighting and the even if they're fake, the plants, and how that just centers me, but also centers clients when they come in. So I add like I have my little ergonomic mouse pad and just like things that help bring some coziness even in a busy work day.
And I think that's such a good example of how we like self-care doesn't always have to be this thing where I'm spending 6 hours a day trying to figure it out. It can really be like maybe you guys keep seeing me like I have my heated blanket that I keep at my desk.
Cozy.
Yeah, because I want to be cozy and I have like my
Mhm.
mama cup
Yes,
of water,
yes.
um, and snacks and things like that at my desk that
Mhm.
help me
Mhm.
feel connected to myself so I can do the work.
Yeah. I saw an Instagram ad where it was like a 3-in-1 coaster. And it was for those who have multiple drinks at a time, so your coffee or water or your tea or lemonade. And I was like, I'm checking that one out.
Yeah, one, please. Yeah. One of my kind of things like that, because I am a multiple drink kind of person, is I don't know if I've shared this on here. My husband got a frost buddy. Have I told you about this?
No.
Okay, one of my greatest joys in life is sipping on an iced coffee all day.
Mm.
But if you know, you know that what happens with an iced coffee is that the ice melts and then it kind of gets gross. I mean, I'll still drink it because, beggars can't be choosers. But a couple months ago at his work, my husband was gifted this thing called a Frost Buddy. And it is basically kind of like an insulated cup where
Mm.
you put your iced drinks in it. So I go
Ooh.
to Chick-fil-A. My favorite iced coffee is a vanilla iced coffee from Chick-fil-A.
So
So I go
good.
to Chick-fil-A and then I just put that cup in the Frost
Oh, I
Buddy.
love that.
And it
Okay.
keeps the ice all day,
Okay.
all day. I mean, we
I'll
love it
find
so
one.
much that we got a second one because he uses it and I use one.
Yeah,
Um,
that's
and it's
amazing.
Yeah. And it's like the some I've heard someone call it like the creature comforts.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That can be included in self-care, that it's not always like an active thing. It can be just like wearing pants that are comfortable.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Casual Fridays.
Casual Fridays, yeah. Yeah, and seeing yourself as worthy of those things, like right, like seeing yourself as worthy to not necessarily be wasteful because I don't, and especially right now in this economy with gas where it is,
Mm-hmm.
um, not necessarily being wasteful, but like the things that we can control and that we can manage, doing that for our own comfort and ease, that it doesn't always have to be hard,
Yeah. Hmm.
right? Um, Let me see. So, kind of going back to this idea of self-care. I think, we learn a lot of our messaging from our parents, how we see it modeled, how we see it modeled in our systems, in our family systems. And I want to touch on like maybe the two big kind of lies that maybe we see, maybe particularly in our community. I would say the first one is I have to earn rest.
Mm-hmm.
And the second one is we can do it all, especially for high achieving women, or high achieving individuals, doesn't have to be women. So I think for us, I have to earn rest, right? Like I can't lay down until I've cleaned all the whole house and then I can lay down. Or I think there can be times where we motivate ourselves. So like I think sometimes like on Tuesdays, not so much anymore, but Fridays for sure. Tuesdays used to be like my sweet treat Tuesday. And so every Tuesday I'd get a sweet treat. And that could have been, usually was coffee, to be honest. But sometimes I would also look like going to Andy's custard and getting a custard in the evening. Or, um, I love donuts. I am always trying to manage my protein intake. Donuts do not have protein. Um, so right on Wednesdays, when I go to Bible study, I stop and get donuts on my way there.
Yeah.
Um, and so really getting to a place where like that's something I can do just for myself, not necessarily because I have to earn it or I have to
Mhm.
like work out enough or do enough house stuff or X, Y, and Z to do that. I'm curious about how that might show up for you.
I guess for me, it's still something that it's always something like I'm always learning or I'm always unlearning, but I think it's still something that shows up at the end of the day. Um, if I'm feeling maybe like uneasy, right? Did I do enough? Did I finish what I need to? But a way that I've been trying to balance that and still um be able to get the rest I need or the break I need is, I guess, a couple different things. One is um before I used to kind of like not answer certain phone calls or FaceTimes like during my lunch break, or during like breaks because again, I'm like, I just don't want to. Like I don't want to. I've been listening to people all day, I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
listen to more people, but I actually feel a lot more energized after if I've just talked about whatever with like my dad or my mom or my best friend and kind of going back to that social self-care that I'm still able to connect with people um and that helps me like even if I don't do everything productivity wise that I still showed up for those relationships and then laughter. I just laughter. I have my like funny podcasts in the morning. Whether it's just like a Cheesemate podcast or if it's like a film review podcast. But just something that helps me like laugh. I don't know if anybody knows the Bald and the Beautiful podcast, but they're two drag queens and they just say the most absurd things and I'm just there laughing. It's like me and my two best friends laughing. Um
Is that the Bryans?
yes, the
I
Brian.
love them. They're so funny. They're so
Oh, they're
funny.
so absurd, but it's the best. I'll just be quoting them throughout the day.
Love that. I love that. Those are awesome. Those are great ways. Like, and those are not like you don't really have to spend money for a lot of those, right? It really is about being intentional around that, and it doesn't have to be the most. And the thing is, if it feels like if too much feels like a chore, then that's a different, right? Like we have to reevaluate.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
I think like continuing to measure like how I feel after.
Hmm.
That's how
Hmm.
I feel about working out. I've been in a little bit of a working out slump.
Hmm.
And this week I'm getting I keep saying this every week, but this week for real, for real. Um,
I'm locking in.
I'm locking in. Yeah. Well, I'm doing the MS 150 this year again, San Antonio. So it'll be um, a long distance bike ride. And so last year I did 35 miles one day.
Wow.
This year they've changed the routes a little bit, and so it looks like it's going to be 25 miles one
Okay.
day. Last year it was 35, 50, or 67, 100 miles, and this year they're like lowering them. I think it's like 25, 50, 75. So I think what I would like to do this year is a 25 one day, 25 the second day.
Mm,
So I have to look at the course when it comes out. But anyway, so I have to start training for that here this month, which is training month. So, but
that's
thinking about
awesome.
things, but thinking about like, okay, how am I going to feel after this?
Hmm.
And I don't have to do it for an hour. I can do it for
Right.
30 minutes. I can do it for
Right.
20 minutes. I can do it for 10 minutes.
Mhm.
And that can help the ball roll. And I think for me, especially around working out, and I think around any of these things, is like, can I do this for 10 minutes? And if I don't want to after the 10 or 5, I turn it off.
Right. Right.
Like it's really not a big deal.
Hmm.
Same
Hmm.
thing with books. I've gotten to a point where like I love to read. That's a form of self-care. But like if I don't like it, I don't finish it.
Yeah. Did
Just
not finish list.
did not finish list. Yeah. Yeah. Um, and so it really can be like like self-care can be very human. It doesn't have to be the spa. That could be part of it. But it doesn't have to be all of it.
Hmm. Hmm.
We we're gonna change gears a little bit. I want us to share a little bit around false self-care versus real self-care. And I know you have a carousel you wanted to show us.
Yeah,
Um,
can pull it up.
and yeah, while you do that, just like talking about like self-care, a lot of times it's about like sustainability. So it really is about building a life that you like, that you don't have to escape from. Um, and that can sometimes be a little bit different than coping skills.
Hmm.
Coping skills has a lot more to do with, um, it's not that they're not related, they for sure are. But coping, I wouldn't necessarily always say that it's self-care in the most direct form, meaning like you are responsible for managing your own emotions and you're responsible for managing your own stress. Self-care can help with that because it can open up capacity, help build capacity. But coping is like maybe a better way to put that. Coping is an activity you do as self-care,
Hmm.
not necessarily self-care as a big category.
Right, right. Hmm. Hmm.
And so we can get into places, right, where like maybe you feel like you're practicing self-care and you're like, this is
Nothing's
not giving
happening.
me, yeah, nothing's happening. Like this isn't giving me the thought or the effect that
I
um
was promised.
yeah, yeah. So I don't know if you want to walk us through this carousel.
Yeah, so I came across, well, actually one of my um friends from my grad school cohort posted this on her story, and it's pretty simplified, but it goes over just that, self-care self-care is not all like one size fits all. It really is being tuned into your specific needs in the moment, and then how we can pair that with something that's actually going to help address what's coming up for you. So, I liked this statement. You're going off of vibes. You're going
Mhm.
off of vibes and maybe not as intentionally or as maybe just sometimes we're not aware, right? We're just not aware and we're just going
Mhm.
off of, well, you know, Instagram told me this or Pinterest told me this. So it talks about how to match up what you're feeling. So if you are feeling more numb, more burnt out, more even like dissociative, um, sleeping it off is not going to help. Withdrawing from people is not going to help. Brain rot, you know, watch like screen time is not going to help. But activation, right? So, and you also don't have to like jump to the other extreme right away, but even like I can maybe sit still, but maybe not in my dark room with the blinds closed, and I go to my backyard and at least let the sun hit me.
Yeah.
Can I have some light instrumental music playing or um if you have like an a playlist like that's a little bit even like nostalgic to a time that helps you remember when you were a little bit more like for me it's my middle school playlist. I can go back to that, you know, either empowered or like mad or like whatever it is that I need to
Mhm.
activate.
Mhm.
And then some movement, going on a walk, stretching, just something that's different, something new.
Yeah. Yeah. Novelty. Novelty fixes a lot of things.
Hmm. Um, and then on the flip side, maybe you're a little bit more wired up, more restless, more hypervigilant, nervous. Um, things that like go with that, more stimulation is not going to help you. So for example, maybe you're really wired up and are like, let me maybe um go to the gym today and
Hmm.
like go work out, but the gym is like really crowded, it's overstimulating. Maybe today I'm gonna go to a new coffee shop, but again, lots of noise, also caffeine intake, right? So that's maybe not the most helpful. Predictability, slowing down, less input. So noise canceling headphones I love for that reason. Where maybe you can still be doing things, but just that muted kind of sensory input helps your nervous system immediately, like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
um, scheduling in time for decompression, even like 5 minutes. Um, you mentioned your heated blanket, right? Just having some
Hmm.
comfort,
Hmm.
some gentleness.
Yeah. Um, keep going. I had a thought, but we're gonna do this and then I'm
Okay.
gonna
Um, irritability, right?
Mhm.
Anger. Sometimes we want to like get ourselves to stop, like, why am I feeling this way? Or what can I do to stop feeling this way? Do I need to talk it out? And sometimes we just like talk ourselves to circles and over analyze. Sometimes you just have to hit something or scream it out. And again, in a safe and contained way, but in a way that does allow for some of that release. So, um, this can look from something as simple as rather than like chopping up your veggies, you're breaking them with your hands, or you're doing some pillow slams. You know, you grab a pillow and just slam it down on your bed. Contact sports are fun for this, like boxing, kickboxing, running, biking, all the things that help you let it out. I like doing lion's breath, which, you know, if you can't scream, right? You don't want to cause someone to like check in on you. Lion's breath is just for your, if you are screaming, you're just not making noise, right? You will breathe in and then like roar, like, you know, you do the face, you
Yeah.
exhale. And I love that one.
We, during my somatic experiencing training, we talk about like these states quite a bit and interventions and whatnot. And so one of the things they'll sometimes have us do, if you're open to participating, is like having people like act like a bear or a lion and
Mm,
like kind of crawl around. It's kind of silly, but it's
yes,
helpful for this kind of
yes.
energy.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I also like for that one wall wall
Oh yeah,
pushes.
wall pushes. Mm-hmm.
You like push the wall away from you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, and then like just to close out, right? Regulation isn't always aesthetic. Like I said, it's not just going to a yoga class, it's not just going for coffee. It's what do I genuinely need to get me back to kind of a neutral place. And sometimes that does look silly or even ugly, right? Like it's not aesthetic, but it's what you need.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Have you seen the memes of um where it's like someone's like, unfortunately, walking outside does help my mental health, and he's like angry.
Oh
um,
man, I want to. Let me see it. No, we'll have to reshare it at another point. But it was like the type of stuff you have to do to be in a better mood. But it's like this guy, he looks all tough, and like the music's like a 90s song, and he's just like angrily walking on a boardwalk and looking at the birds and sitting by the water. True. I'm like,
yeah,
true.
it's true. It's true. I think that, social media, right, is built on consumerism, right? So the things, not everyone, but a lot of the things you're going to see is built on that. So they'll preach self-care, and then you need a new cup, and you need to go to yoga class, or you need to do the reformer, or you need to XYZ. But self-care is actually very gritty.
Yeah.
It's very gritty and very, um, it doesn't work on the in la primera. Have to keep practicing it again and again and again. And I think so much about like, I compare sometimes our mental health to spring or to plants, where like you see nothing happening for a long time, like especially coming out of winter, where it's the plant is kind of lying dormant, but it's still getting sunshine, it's still getting water, right? So like doing the thing it does with oxygen, that's really cool. And then all of a sudden, after like regularness of that, we'll see like these tiny leaves that just like kind of pop up overnight. And I think like self care works in a similar way. The first time that you do it, there's probably not a difference. And the second time you do it, there's probably not a difference. And the third time, but then all of a sudden you wake up and you're like, oh my gosh, I feel so much better. I feel so much more grounded.
Mhm.
When my big emotions come up, I know what to do with them. And it doesn't feel as difficult. But I think at the beginning, you really can be white knuckling things, just like, I'm gonna do this because my therapist told me to, or like I know it's
Mhm.
good for me.
Mhm.
And you have to trick yourself. Like I was saying that, like even with working out, I have to like put my workout clothes right in the bathroom, so it's the first thing
Yeah.
I see in.
Mhm.
And I have to put my AirPods at the Peloton so that if I need them, I have to come all the way. Like sometimes you have to
Yeah.
do that,
Yeah.
but the more you practice it, the easier it kind of gets.
Mhm. Mhm.
Well, what a good talk on
Yeah.
self-care, right? So just to kind of wrap it up, just the reminder, right? Like self-care, we get a lot of messaging about self-care, our families, from our friends, but it really is about building a life that's sustainable. Um, for you, for your family, that you can show up as the person you want to, in all the different situations. And there's a lot of different ways to practice that. And so, if you are curious about self care and what that looks like, feel free to pick up our book, Self Care for Chingonas. There's after every chapter, there's there's 16, 15 or 16 chapters in here. Um, 12, there's 12. Um, After every chapter, there is like, you can't see it very well, but there's basically an exercise how you can start practicing whatever that self-care practice is. Um, so it can be a really great way for us to start practicing. Dr.
Mhm.
Letty's is schedule me time. And then she walks you through different ways that you can do that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you're interested, please feel free to pick it up. But there's also a ton of resources online you can look at. And what I always tell my clients is you pick one thing that feels doable. So that might be like, I'm going to walk 2 days a week. And I think like if you are a high achiever, you can get stuck. And you're like, 2 days a week is not like doesn't sound like a lot. And but the reality is that 2 days a week is more than 0 days a week.
Yeah.
And that two can easily become five once you put that in. So, and then you just do that for 3 to 4 months, just walking 2 days a week. And then once you feel like you have mastered it, then you add the next thing, right? You don't have to do all of these things. Or if you have capacity, great. But I think most of us don't. So we pick one thing and we just do that really well. And then we add something else or we change it if we need to change it. So self care is a journey for sure. For sure. If if you are looking for, oh, the other thing that I want to highlight before we wrap up today is that our summit is May 16th on at Ocho off of Jefferson in Dallas. And so it's going to be a great time to learn about basically it is a bit of self-care and healing practices that come from our roots, from our culture. So we'll be talking about limpias and food and scents and we have like we're working on a little workbook for everyone that they can take home and practice. And um, that is May 16th from 9 to 1 in Oak Cliff. We're currently working on getting some CEUs so that our clinicians can get CEUs by attending. But it's going to be a great time of community and connection and just learning from some of the people in DFW that are really doing really amazing work of integrating culture into wellness. And then finally, if you're needing to talk to someone, feel free to check out our website, cananacenter.com. Um, and you can give us a call and we'll help set you up with a therapist. So thanks again for joining us today. And Elizabeth, as always, it's always so fun to co-host with you.
Yes, Sam. Thank you.